Welcome to Loud and Clear, a program geared toward the younger generations. You can listen in every Thursday at 7 p.m. or find the plug to our YouTube channel on kgtcradio.com.
Welcome to Loud and Clear. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Nathan.
And it's good to be here tonight with you guys. It's not night for you guys, but it is for us.
Or it might be. You never know.
Yeah, actually, it is.
I mean, yeah, because 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I knew what I was
Every
saying.
Thursday,
yeah,
you were on it.
I know
Yeah,
what
you
I'm
knew.
doing.
You knew.
I knew exactly what I was doing. Anyways, before we get started, we are going to go over some prelims. So Nathan's going to do that for us.
Yes. Yeah. If you have questions for Loud and Clear, you can email them into vcfrevivalyouth@gmail.com. Put ESET. What was that, dude? Our words are just falling apart. We tried like a couple times to get this started. So put LC for Loud and Clear. I don't know what I said before. What was that? ESA? LC for Loud and Clear in the subject line. Or you can text us at 509-402-3446. Okay. We got it.
Well, I think that was my highlight for the week.
Yeah. This was
is how tough it was to start this program today.
My gosh.
But my highlight at the time of recording this, we launched our Wednesday nights down in OMAC.
Yes.
And that was really cool. I was actually very surprised with the turnout. I kind of expected it to kind of be not very many people.
Sure.
Just for the first one and kind of just but it was actually a great turnout, and
that was awesome.
Worship was great, even though it was just Christina.
Yeah.
It was still like you could feel the presence of God, and it was super cool. It was just one of those like very laid back, but it was still, I don't know, it was just a good time.
Yeah,
and I actually really enjoyed it. I'm actually looking forward to Wednesday nights. I think it's going to make a big impact down there for a lot of people. You know, having a service in the middle of the week is I think it's really nice to have a service kind of when everybody's getting off of work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have something to go to, and so.
Yeah.
I was super excited about that. And if you're in the OMAC area, join us Wednesday nights. We start dinner at 5, and then there's dinner, so come for food.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's preaching, obviously, and that's our address is 9 North Main Street, OMAC. So if you're in OMAC, join us. We'd love to have you. But it was just a good time.
That's good. Yeah, and I think you'll see building on youth as well, just because that's just such a middle of the week seems to be better for a lot of people. I think that's going to be good. I mean, it's hard this time of year because we got sports to contend with. Yes. I mean, at the time of recording this, at least we've got sports to contend with. So that's definitely something. But yeah, man, Wednesday nights, that's awesome. The consistency is huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
What's your highlight?
My highlight? It's a great question. Well, at the time of recording this, my grandparents are actually coming back into town. So my grandpa Bill and my grandma Donna. So we're super excited to have them back in the ministry and just everything. I don't know, what capacity my grandpa is going to want to serve in, or if he's going to want to serve at all. I think he's just going to sit and just enjoy things. But growing up, we had him around. You know, he used to drive the bus for us. For youth group. We called him Wild Bill because he was pretty crazy. But I remember one time we were coming down a hill. I don't even know if you were on the bus for this one or not, but it was when we were coming out of Riverside Church, and we were turning the corner. And there's the road comes down to the road that's going up. And we turned that corner there, and he cut it way too sharp. And we just slammed down really hard. And I remember, I think it was Eric or Ryan, one of our youth guys, they just they hit their head on the roof of the bus, or they slammed down on the chair. I can't remember what it was, but it was they had a headache after that. It was bad. And I think we dented in the storage compartment on the bottom of the bus. Dude, that bus had seen better days. It was pretty rough. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember your uncle. That was good man.
Yeah,
a really good man. Yeah, he did a lot for us as young kids back then. So it's gonna be I'm excited to have him back in the body, and I hope he does decide to lead in some capacity. But if he doesn't, that's cool too.
Yeah.
But what I kind of wanted to talk about this week, getting into the serious stuff, is the importance of godly character.
Yeah.
And I think more than anything, this is what the world needs from believers right now, is men and women that are proclaiming to love Jesus and follow Jesus, to have godly character.
Yeah.
And I think, that's what's going to separate a lot of people as time goes on, is going to be the people that are serious about God and the people that aren't. Because it's easy to just say, I believe in Jesus, but it's a whole different thing to spend time with him and to allow God to change you. And when he changes you, your character begins to change.
Yeah.
As you begin to pursue Christ, as you begin to read and study and pray, your character starts to change. And godly character is very important, because it's not, coming to church on a Wednesday or a Sunday. It's easy to just put on this performance of, oh, I'm good and I'm a good person and I don't do that. And we talk a certain way and we don't say certain things and we dress certain ways, but it's totally different when we're not in church, But the truth is, it's important that our private life is matching our public life.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of people have this public life where it's like they're putting on this performance. And that's not the way it's supposed to be, know. And I think that does more damage to an unbeliever when they see that, especially in believers, when they see these two different sides of a supposed Christian. And this was me in high school. I mean, I literally I've been a part of this church for 17 years. And so through all of my, going to school and all that, and at school I was one person, and on Wednesdays, and Wednesdays and Sundays, I was totally different.
Yeah.
I was like Wednesday nights and Sunday mornings, I love God. And then Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I was, a teenager that wanted to fit in and was, drinking and doing this and doing that. You never would have known. You never would have known that I love God, or that I, and at the time you never would have, you couldn't have told anybody that I did. And so, and I look back on those years of my life and I think to myself, man, if I would have had godly character, if I would have been a man or a teenager that was trying to follow God, and how that would have impacted my character. And I think that's really, like, when you read about Jesus in the four Gospels, you see he always had this large crowd. It always says, and there was a large crowd around Jesus, and there was a large crowd, and there was a large crowd. That's because Jesus had godly character. Yeah. There was something different about him. Yeah. There was something that made him unique. He was special, but it's because he had godly character. Yeah. He wasn't putting something on. He wasn't, he wasn't trying to act holy. This was who he was. This was his character. And as believers, we're called to the same thing. We're called to have this godly character. We're called to act like Christ. We're called to be followers of Jesus, which means that we would act in the way that he would act, not just in public, not just when I'm preaching, not just when I'm on the radio, not just when I see somebody at the store that's from church, but at home when I'm with my kids, at home when I'm with my wife, especially, at work, and all these places where I'm not necessarily in the public or on stage, that it matters more my character at those places than it does on the pulpit.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah. And I look at, like, when I was in high school as well, as that I feel like setting an example for Jesus was hard. Yeah. I mean, it was very hard because you wanted to fit in, and I struggled with both of those things. I think that I did my best to display godly character, but at the same time, I feel like I was intimidated, and if anything, I just got quiet. Yeah. Right. And so I think that's the challenge that you face as a teenager too, is like, it's easy to represent Christ in church because everybody's with you. Yeah. Everybody's there for the same reason. Everybody's like, you have your leaders leading you that way. You have all that stuff happening. But when you're in high school, you literally are sometimes you're the only one that is feeling that, that God's speaking to you to be bold or to set an example. And I think that for teenagers, sometimes it isn't like being crazy, and like preaching at all your friends in school. Sometimes it's just simply saying, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to say that. And when you have that integrity, people recognize it, and they're either they might make fun of you for it, but at least it creates an open door to talk.
Yeah.
Or they might ask you questions. You'll be the person that they'll run to, because they'll know that you're not going to make fun of them. You're not going to say things. You're not just going to joke it off and whatever. You're going to actually like you're representing Christ, even sometimes if that's just not participating in those things.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I want to read Romans chapter 5, verses 3 through 5. And it says, not only that, but we also boast in our afflictions, because we know that affliction produces endurance, and endurance produces proven character, and proven character produces hope. Mm-hmm. And you can read a verse like this, and you can kind of think like, okay, well, my initial thought is this, and this is kind of where I want to go with this is David, when he was anointed to be king, he was 15 years old. Mm-hmm. When he became king, he was 30 years old. So there's like 14 to 15 years gap there from when the moment he was anointed to the moment that he actually became king. And in those 15 years, so much happened in that time. Yeah. He had to fight a bear and a lion, Goliath. He had to deal with Saul. Mm-hmm. He had to deal with all these things before he could be king. And I'm not going to sit here and try and say I know why this happened and this, but I can say this. I can say that I feel like David had to go through these things so that he would have so God could build in him and instill in him godly character. It's
true.
And, so him fighting this bear to protect the sheep, and him fighting this lion to protect the sheep, and him dealing with Goliath, all that was what it was doing. It was building in him godly character.
Yeah.
And so, because it talks about your afflictions and produces these things. It produces endurance, and then endurance produces your, proven character. So the things that we go through in life, sometimes we think like, I'm just going through this and there's no reason why. I think sometimes we're allowed to go through certain things because God's trying to build and instill in us a character worthy of what he's calling us to do. Yeah. Because being a pastor or a leader isn't just about a title. Mm-hmm. And I think especially in the American church, I think this is why there's so much hurt with non-believers is you can walk into a church and most of the time it's just a performance. Yeah. There's a performance going on behind the pulpit or whatever. And that causes a lot of hurt, a lot of offense. Yeah. And I think, for me, I think God's really been dealing with this topic a lot of having this godly character, and who I am on a Sunday morning needs to be who I am every day of the week. Yeah. There shouldn't be a difference. There shouldn't be I'm trying to be more holy on a Sunday. Like, no, this is who I want to be every single day of the week. Yeah. But how these things happen is by, number one, spending time with God. We have to know and understand God's character because we're trying to follow in his footsteps. We're trying to, how can I imitate somebody that I don't even know? Yeah, it's true. Paul says, imitate me as what? As I imitate Christ. Yeah. And that's what we're called to be. That's what we're called to do. I'm called to follow in the footsteps of Christ. I'm called to follow in his character. But if I don't know who it is I'm supposed to be following, it's going to be really, really hard. Yeah, it's true. And I think sometimes I just feel like a broken record because I feel like this is always coming out, but it's fundamental. Yeah. We have to have our personal relationship with God. Yeah. If you want to have godly character, if you want to pursue these things, you have to have a relationship with God. Yeah. You have to have this time where you sit and say, God, I'm going to spend time with you. And it's not to get something. I think that's a big thing too, is as believers, we try to, and maybe sometimes we're not even thinking about it, but it's like we spend time with God because we want to get something. Mm-hmm. Oh, God, if I pray and if I read, then God's going to give me this. No, we have to go so far beyond that. We need to get to the point to where we're reading and we're praying because we want to know Jesus. Yeah. Because we want to know more of him. Because the more that we know of him, the more we're going to know of ourselves. Yeah, for sure. Brian always says that Jesus is trying to introduce you to your real self. Mm-hmm. And that's so true. God's trying to introduce you to who you are in him. Yeah. And that comes along with his godly character. That comes with you and I being somebody who God is really actually calling us to be. Yeah. But that's going to require us to sit down, meditate, and spend time getting to know Jesus and his character. Yeah, for sure. Well, we live in such a microwave society too, that we don't stick around for the character development.
We don't think that needs to happen. If you have like, if you're thinking your character is going to be developed overnight, it's just not.
Yeah.
It's just not how it works. And we want it so fast, and we get like, when I got saved as a little kid, there was all the promises that are spoken over you. Yeah, I'm sure you received those too when you got saved. Is that like, oh man, you're called to do this, or like, I feel like God has a call on your life. That's just not a cliche that a pastor says. That's genuinely true for every single believer, that there is a call on your life. It's not fake. Pastors aren't just saying that to throw that around. Maybe a pastor is, but it's still true. Yeah. And we receive that, and we're like, oh yeah, God's got a call in my life. Well, now you've entered the in-between. Now you've entered the character building. And I mean, if you're a teenager, high school is the biggest character building you're going to encounter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you might have some other things in life. Like David was not, we sometimes think the in-between is a punishment, and it's not, because like David was fulfilling things that God had wanted him to fulfill. The fights that he faced, the things that he did, like in his pure, like David was probably at his purest in the in-between, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's what the challenge is to us too, is like the in-between, God's not punishing you, God's developing you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that, I look back on my life and some of the hardest things in my life, like I can look in the middle. I think sometimes when we're in the middle of a struggle or like a season of warfare, like when we're in that season, it's so hard to stop and be like, this is good for me. Yeah. Like this is doing something, this is producing fruit in my life. This is producing godly character in my life. Yeah. But then when you get out of those seasons, you can look back and you can be like, I needed that. Yeah. Yeah. Like there's things that obviously I've done in my life that, I regret and I've had to repent for. But looking back and being on this side of it, I can say I needed that. Yeah. Like I wouldn't change that, because God used those things to bring me to where I am today. Yeah. God used those things to form and shape my character into who I am today. And obviously that's still a work in progress. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I need this every single day. Mm-hmm. And I'm striving to represent God in a good way. And that's really what godly character is. It's having this Christ likeness about us. Mm-hmm. It's having this, living a life that reflects him well. Yeah. That when someone looks at me, they can say, they can see Jesus. Yeah. Sometimes we throw that out. Like, I want people to see Jesus in my life, but they're not going to see Jesus if we're living for ourselves. Yeah. We have to have this Christ likeness about us where we are representing him to the best of our ability, and having this heart of integrity, is important, and having, living and having love and having peace and having joy. These are all godly characteristics that a believer should have. Yeah. And I know for me, like, this is just something that God's really been downloading into my spirit. And there's Paris Reagan did this series on godly character. Super good. I would encourage anybody to listen to it. Which has kind of really sparked this in my life, and it's just been going over and over in my spirit. But thinking about how true it is that this is what speaks volumes to an unbeliever, is when a man or a woman of God has godly character. That's what preaches. So many times, like, I had somebody on Wednesday, at the time of recording this on our Wednesday night, they asked, how do I preach to this generation? Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of really good answers, and I just kind of chimed in and I said, if you want to reach this generation, have godly character. Yeah. Yeah. Be, and that doesn't always mean, sometimes like we're like, oh, if we're going to stand out, that means we have to, wear a shirt that says I'm a Jesus freak and do all these crazy things. No, simply, like you said, just not partaking in certain things, not going to certain places, not listening to certain music. That is godly character. Yeah. I know for me, secular music was a big thing, and God had to deal with me, and it took years and years. But that, to have godly character, those things can't be in my life. Yeah. There's certain, and these are things that God is like just slowly working in my life. There's certain things I can't watch. Mm-hmm. There's certain things I can't allow in my home. There's just certain things I can't allow in my life. Not if I want godly character. Yeah. Not if I want to imitate Christ, because it truly is important. What we are feeding ourselves eventually is going to come out. Yeah. My private life eventually is going to catch up to my public life. And I don't want that. Yeah. Not if it's not godly character, not if it's not God produced, not if it's not fruits of the Spirit, not if it's not what God's doing in my life. And so it obviously is very important with what you're feeding yourself spiritually.
Yeah, it's true.
who you are allowing to speak into your life speaks volumes.
Yeah.
And what is feeding you eventually is what's going to be coming out of you. And so, but all this is important. This all kind of comes back to spending time with God. If you're spending 12 hours a day and TikTok is what's feeding you, then what's on TikTok is going to be what comes out of you.
That's true.
And so that's why I know for me, God's really kind of just cracked down on me, and God has told me, I want you to listen to more sermons.
Yeah.
I want you to spend more time with me. I want you to make more time for me, because if I'm going to represent Christ, I need to know him, and I need to know him well.
Yeah.
And I need to understand his character so that I can walk in what he's calling me to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if you're a teenager listening to this, I encourage you in the same way, whatever that looks like, and feeding yourself with things that are going to equip you too. Because also, like, I've learned just in this past couple of weeks that we need to be equipped.
Yeah.
There's you don't put your identity in your knowledge.
Yeah.
But God can use it.
Absolutely.
God can, paired with the anointing, Pastor told me this, he said, paired with the anointing, education and knowledge about the scriptures, about life is not evil. That's powerful if it's paired with the anointing. And that's something that we need to pursue. And if I've noticed that in young teenage boys that they want knowledge.
Yeah.
It's actually surprised me in how we've had a couple teenagers that are interested in just like world stuff, like history and economics and things like that it's like that, just like, dude, when I was a teenager,
was not worried about
that was not where I was at, but there's something different, and I think we have to equip ourselves to have something, because they can spot fake a million miles away, and a genuine heart is needed, but we do need to feed ourselves with things that will equip us for sure.
Absolutely. So we do have a question. We're kind of running out of time, but I think we can squeeze this one in. So it says in Isaiah 8:13, it says, "The Lord Almighty is the one you are to regard as holy. He is the one you are to fear. He is the one you are to dread." The Lord said Isaiah should dread him. Why should we dread him, not just fear him?
That's a good question.
What do you think, Pastor Nathan?
The one you are to fear, he is the one you are to dread. I think that there's a picture painted of God, there's a picture painted to where he's like this God that is angry, and this God is this way. It's not who God is. God is a loving God. God is a gracious God, but it ties into the fear of God being a respect of God, but also the dread being like the capabilities of our God. I think that we so desperately want to paint him as this like over the top, loving, gracious, greasy grace God. Yeah. We also have to acknowledge his power, and what can be brought. And it's hard to explain. I think that I would like to do a little bit more research on that. But I know it's not dreading, like God's intentions for us are always good.
Yeah, I think I looked it up in a different translation, and I like the way this translation puts it. It says, "You are to regard only the Lord of armies as holy, only he should be feared. Only he should be held in awe." And we've kind of talked about this before, about just fearing God and what that actually means. And that just means having this respect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of what he can really do. Yeah. Like, I think it's important as believers and as human beings to remember our place. Yeah. Remember who we are, and remembering who God is. Yeah. I think that's like, for me, I know God's brought this to my attention so many times, of where he's just like, I'm in control, not you. Yeah. Like, true. I have the final word. Yeah. Like, I created everything. Yeah. Like, why do you not think that I can why do you not think that I can handle this situation? Yeah. Like, just remembering how big he is and how powerful, like, we can't even understand any of that. And so I think a better translation for that is fear, that we're to fear God.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But we're out of time, so we will catch you on the next one. Peace.
Tune in to Loud and Clear every Thursday at 7 p.m. or listen online at kgtcradio.com.